Now, if you look at date, if I ask you what is the date in 2000, this is some accumulation, or I'm going to write here. This is the accumulated surplus and deficit for all the years till 2000. So this is the difference between a government debt and a government deficit. All right, I don't see anything to do here. Goes and talks about taxation. Oh, the government gets its revenues from income taxes, payroll taxes, excise taxes, federal tax receipts, corporate income taxes. This is what is imposed on businesses. So I'm not really going to go over all of these taxes right now because like these are quite self-explanatory. Like you can just read the definition of all these taxes. All right, so next comes a progressive tax. What is a progressive tax system? So US follows a progressive tax system. That means when income increases, the tax revenue this increases. So this is progressive. All right, let me kind of write it down here a little bit. We have three kinds of taxations. One is progressive, then we have regressive, after that we have proportional taxes. All right, all has to do with the income and the tax revenues. Progressive, income is up, you pay higher taxes. Regressive, income is up, you pay lower taxes, like kings and queens. Proportional, income is up, your tax revenues are not changing. No matter how much your income is going up, your tax revenues are staying the same. That's a proportional tax. Alrighty, so marginal tax, this is basically defined as additional tax that you have to pay out of your additional income. Right, we talked about all of this. All right, now I'm going to look at two different types of fiscal policy. One is expansionary, other is contractionary fiscal policy. So when you looked at monetary policy, we had expansionary monetary policy and contractionary monetary policy. The idea is the same here. So expansionary wants to increase aggregate demand. So this one is going to shift the aggregate demand curve to the right. Contractionary, this one is going to shift the aggregate demand to the left. Expansionary is used during a recession. Contractionary is used during an inflation. Now the tools for expansionary fiscal policy is either increase government expenses or lower taxes. Contractionary basically means the economy has too much output, so lower government expenses or increase taxes. This is contractionary fiscal policy. Now, we are looking at a healthy growing economy. So, economic growth we looked at before your midterm exam. This means the potential gross domestic product is increasing. We can achieve this if long run aggregate supply curve shifts to the right. So, this is how the economy should look like. So, we have three different potential gross domestic products. So, we have three levels of potential gross domestic product, and potential gross domestic product is associated with the long run aggregate supply curve. So we are just showing a situation here where the aggregate demand is intersecting aggregate supply. This one is intersecting long run aggregate supply. So basically we have economic growth here. The aggregate demand curve is also shifting to the right, and we see that two things here. Price increasing means we have inflation, but we kind of have a mild inflation. Okay, stop me if you have any questions. So this one is just showing me how an expansionary fiscal policy works. So this one where we have intersection of all three curves, this will be potential GDP, and when we have only the aggregate demand and aggregate supply, only these two are intersecting. This is called real gross domestic product. So this one is potential GDP, and this one is my real gross domestic product. Say the potential is equal to 100, the real is equal to 90. Because the real is less than potential gross domestic product, we are in a recession. So if we are in a recession, the government is going to use expansionary fiscal policy. Oh, we have the tools here and we have the effect. So let me write down the tools. Tools of expansionary fiscal policy is either increase government expenses or lower taxes, and the effect here is gonna be increasing aggregate demand from AD0 to AD1. My prices are going up, my output is also going up. So just try to understand expansionary fiscal policy. This wants to shift the aggregate demand to the right. That means it's shifting the real gross domestic product to the right. The opposite is contractionary fiscal policy here. Say my potential is 100, my real is 120. All right, I'm just going to write here 120 is my real gross domestic product, 100. This one is the potential gross domestic product, and over here I have the tools. The tools are gonna be either lower government expenses or increase taxes. So if you compare with this one here, the tools for an expansionary fiscal policy was lower government expenses or increase taxes, and contractionary is the opposite. And the effect of contractionary fiscal policy is shifting the aggregate demand curve to the left. The prices are going down, the output is going down as well. All right, so almost the last thing in this chapter here. One is called a discretionary fiscal policy and the other is called automatic stabilizers. Discretionary fiscal policy means whatever change in government expenses or taxes are enacted, it has to come from the White House or from the Congress. So Congress is responsible for discretionary fiscal policy. As for example, defense spending, all the stimulus checks, those are discretionary fiscal policies. And automatic stabilizers, that means this is something that is initiated without the help of Congress. One example is, say during a recession, your income is going down, or probably if someone is doing 2 or 3 part-time jobs, they're losing one job, and as a result, their income goes down. And if your income is going down, your tax revenue, you are going to pay less taxes, and the government is going to earn less tax revenue. So it's kind of, we have a progressive tax system here. When income is up, tax revenues are up. When income is down, tax revenues are down. So basically, during a recession, the automatic stabilizers are built in, and this works without the role of Congress. Right, what else do we have here? I feel like, yeah, this is all you need to know here. Oh, this is just showing me what happens when the government is borrowing money in the financial capital market. So this is another interesting thing here. Whenever the government borrows money, this demand for loans, so on the vertical axis we have interest, horizontal axis we have the quantity of financial capital, or these are the quantity of loans. if this demand increases, the interest rate increases. So the thing here is whenever government borrows, the interest rate is increasing. Whenever the interest rate is increasing, the private businesses, they will borrow less. And this is called a crowding out effect. Make sense? Questions? All right, let me ask you.
So when the U.S. Buys more, that then creates a crowding effect.
Crowding out effect, yes. It's kind of the government is borrowing here, and when the government is borrowing, so what happens is they're going to increase the interest rate, and if they increase the interest rate, the private businesses they will borrow less. This is a crowding out effect. Okay. The next thing we have is the problems with fiscal policy. One is the recognition lag. We are probably in a recession, but it takes time to recognize that we are in a recession. That means, oh, people are going to take time to identify that a recession has set in the economy. That's a recognition lag. Next one is a legislative lag, or this is also an administrative lag. That means we are looking at all the paperworks. So we know there's a recession that has set in, but we have to pass a bunch of bills. The Congress has to pass a bunch of bills, and it has to be signed by the government. And it takes time to get all this paperwork process be done. And that is the legislative lag or administrative lag. Implementation lag here, we have a stimulus check. So what do you do with the stimulus check here? You are going to pay for food, pay your bills, and this effect is going to be felt in the economy after some time. So right now we are in a recession. Employment is going down, unemployment is going up here. So government is giving us a stimulus check. It wants to increase the real gross domestic product. So we are gonna feel.
I got Suki and Chinsang out of their cells a few minutes ago. They'll be waiting for us at the shore. Someone's coming.
We are gonna feel the effect of increase in real GDP after a year. All right, so this is kind of the implementation lag. All right, you find this chapter easy or difficult? Oh, I have to give you the videos. I'll see you. This is all you need to know from this chapter. And when you are looking at your exams here, please, the exams are not comprehensive. It's gonna be what we did after our midterms. So I just posted all your reviews, and you can go ahead and take a look at your reviews. And you'd be good if you are good with the reviews, and if you have any questions with the reviews, please let me know. If you want to discuss the review questions, just let me know. Right now I'm gonna go and do the last chapter here. So please use, all of you, Please use this PowerPoint for the last chapter because it makes it really easy. If you do something else like the PowerPoint that comes with the book, that makes it difficult for everyone. But if you look at this PowerPoint, it's really easy to understand. All right, international trade policy. Basically the last chapter we are going to do here for this class. All right, so in this one we talk about exports and imports, and we talk about some kind of, oh, I see 8 of you just joined in. I was trying to see who are the people that's joining in. That's interesting. So first question, we all know what exports are, we all know what imports are, right? Okay, I'm gonna assume, as I can't hear anyone here, I'm hoping that we all know what exports are, what imports are. Alright, take a look at some of these graphs really carefully. Take a look at this one here. What do we have in this one? I have the demand curve, I have the supply curve, and this says DUS, that means demand curve for the US economy, supply curve for the US economy. This is basically a demand supply graph here. This is telling me my equilibrium price is $100. My equilibrium quantity is 400. The domestic demand is equal to domestic supply, which is equal to 400. So nothing great is going on here, and definitely the economy is not really trading with anyone. Okay, this is what this graph, this slide is telling me. All right, now when we go and move along to the next slide here, I think I kind of skipped a bunch of slides. Oh yeah, I skipped a bunch of slides. Sorry, I should have started from here. Okay, sorry, come back to this one, this slide here. Oh, my price is $8, my quantity is 40, there is no trade that goes on. Now I'm going to look at this one here. This one's telling me the US price or the domestic price is $8, and just write it down here. The domestic price is equal to $8, and the world price is equal to $5. Which one's greater, domestic or the world? So as the domestic price is greater than the world price here, let me just write it down here. Whenever the domestic price is greater than world price, the country will import. All right, so these things, there's going to be questions from this chapter here, so pay attention here, all of you. All right, take a look at this graph here. You know why let me make it a little bit bigger. It's like too big. All right, this $5 line, which was the world price, this is cutting the demand curve at 60, cutting the supply curve at 20. So the new demand in the US is equal to 60, but the new supply in the US is equal to 20. So basically, the demand is greater than supply. So the US is going to import 40 million t-shirts. And after trade, the domestic price becomes equal to the world price. So the domestic price was $8 before. After trade, it went down from 8 to 5. So when price goes down, demand increases, supply decreases. The buyers are better off because without trade they were buying 40, with trade they're buying 60 and paying a lower price. So I'm going to say the buyers are definitely better off here, and the sellers, they're worse off because they're selling less from 40 to 20 and they are getting a lower price. So the sellers are worse off with a trade, with imports. Now this one is the same, again the same demand supply graph here. Now if you go to this one here, it says the domestic price is equal to 100 and the world price is equal to 150. Whenever the world price is greater than the domestic price, the country will export. Taking a look here at this graph, so without trade, we have without trade, the price was 100, quantity demanded was equal to quantity supplied equal to 400. Now with trade, the domestic price becomes equal to world price, which is 150. This 150 is cutting the supply curve at 700, cutting the demand curve at 200. So supply is like domestic supply is greater than domestic demand. The country is going to export the excess quantity and this is equal to 500. Questions? Okay. This makes sense?
So internal trading creates more exports, and external trading creates more imports.
So it's kind of what creates imports is whenever the domestic price we get at the intersection of demand and supply graph, domestic price is greater than world price, the country will import. It's like if you look at t-shirts here, the t-shirts in US are quite expensive compared to t-shirts produced overseas. So people are going to import t-shirts. Import and sell it in the US because if you look at US produced clothes, those are more expensive than if it says it's made in Indonesia or made in Guatemala or somewhere like that. So basically, because it's cheaper, the country is gonna import. And if the country imports, definitely the domestic producers or the US farms are worse off. So this one is import scenario here. The US farms or US businesses are worse off. They are the sellers, and we have the consumers like us, because we are paying a lower price for t-shirts, we are better off. And only the price difference causes an import or export. So you have to see if this world price line is above or below this intersection point. Whenever is below, that means outside the world this good is really cheap, so the country is going to import. But definitely the US farms are worse off. This one I have, the US price is 100, the world price is 150. So in this one, the US farms, they are better off. They are better off because they have the option to sell it outside the country. Like if I sell it here in the US, I'm gonna get $100, but if I sell it in somewhere like outside the country, like export this good, I'm gonna get $150. So this one is gonna encourage country was gonna export. Whenever the world price is a lot higher than domestic price. And also consumers will be worse off when the country exports. Like that is what you see here. QD, let me just write it down. Quantity demanded is for the buyers or the consumers. Quantity supplied is for the sellers. Whenever we have I'm gonna say whenever we have exports, the sellers are selling more, they are better off and getting a higher price compared to without trade. And these are the buyers here, they are buying 150 now compared to, sorry, they are buying 200 now compared to 400 before. They are worse off. So this one is the new demand, and just gonna say here 200 is the new demand and 700 is new supply. Okay, all right, then we have just one more slide to go here. We talk about a tariff, and tariff is some kind of tax that is imposed on imported goods. Okay, a lot of countries have tariffs. So basically, if you are importing here, you have to pay a tax to the government. So back to this graph here. So let me tell you something. Whenever we have exports, tariff doesn't really work with exports here. So the tariff works only on imports. not on exports. Let me show you this one here. So this is what we did before with trade. So this is with trade here. Price is $5. Quantity demanded is, I get the quantity demanded where this $5 line is hitting the demand curve. 60. Quantity supplied is gonna be 20. And I have my imports, which is equal to 60 minus 20, and this is equal to 40. And we do not have any tariffs or any kind of trade restrictions. Oh, now let's say the government imposes a tariff of $2 here. So previously the price was $5. Now the new price is gonna be 5 plus 2, which is $7. So basically a tariff is imposed, which is $2. Now I want you to compare where this $5 line is hitting the demand curve and the supply curve, and where this, let's see, this line, $7 line, is hitting the demand curve and the supply curve. So all right, let's just stop this annotations. This $7 line is hitting the demand curve at 45. $7 demand equal to 45. $7 hitting the supply at 35. The $5 line is hitting the demand at 60, hitting the supply at 20. Now I'm going to look at the imports here. The imports are going to be demand minus supply. Over here, the imports are 45 minus 35. This is equal to 10. Over here, the imports are 60 minus 20. This is equal to 40. So when price increases due to a tariff, the imports are gonna go down. Okay. Another thing that we need to do here is the tariff revenue here. We have this small triangle here. So this is calculating the tariff revenue. There's a formula here. Please write it down. This formula is calculated as the tariff. With that, we multiply the new imports. The new imports are gonna be the imports when the price is $7. So the new imports are 10. The tariff is 2. So the tariff revenue is gonna be 2 times 10. That's $20. Questions? Any questions, anyone? All right, if no questions, I'm gonna go and show you something else here. You don't really need to worry about this quota graph at all. So I'm just going to define what a quota is. So we have a quota of 10 million. That means this is a quantity restriction. I did not know if you realized when you go to your grocery shopping these days, you'd see we are allowed to buy uh, 8 units of canned goods, 5 boxes of pasta. What else? Like just one pack of toilet paper. Like these are all quotas here. So, like we are facing quotas these days when you do our grocery shopping, the import industry also faces a quota. So, I'm gonna write here the last thing here. The quota is gonna be equal to amount of imports. So the government says there's a quota of 10 million. The imports are gonna be equal to 10 million. The results are same as a tariff. So quota is imposed, the results are the same as with tariff, but with one difference here. The difference is the government does not earn any tariff revenue, or I'm just going to say here any kind of revenue, unlike what we did over here. Over here, the government was earning some revenue, the small rectangle, but with a quota, the government is not really earning any kind of revenues. Don't worry at all about this other graphs, the quota graph. All right. Case against protection. That means why do we have tariffs? Also, why do we have quotas or any kind of import restrictions? One of the arguments is a national security argument. Is like if we are in a war with some country, it's really helpful if we buy goods from within the US, buy goods from the defense sector within the US rather than trying to import from outside the country. So that's the national security argument. This is one of the reasons why we have tariffs and quotas. Next is infant industry argument. They tell us we are letting the US industries to grow and mature so that it can compete with the low cost labor saving cheap labor industries around the world. So we are basically letting the domestic industries to grow and uh, acquire new tools so that it can compete. Next one is quite interesting. This is called a dumping argument. This one basically means a foreign firm is selling their goods at a lower price. Say, one of the examples of dumping is India selling steel at a very low price to the US, and the price is less than the cost of production, and China selling textiles at a really low price. Like I'm just gonna write here to the US, and the prices are so low that US the domestic farms cannot really compete with Indian steel and Chinese textiles because the prices are extremely low. And what happens here is the US farms are driven out of the market by the competitors, and this is called predatory pricing. And after the US farms are out of the market, this international farms from India and China, they're gonna jack up the price. So this is called dumping, and we have this dumping argument that really makes the government impose tariffs and quotas. So this is all you got to know from this chapter. Questions? Please take a look at the review questions. I haven't started checking your essays yet. I'll go and check your essays. Oh, and give you your feedback, and by Tuesday, latest by Wednesday, I will post the final exams. Please get it done by this Friday 11:59 p.m. All right. So that's all for the day.
You mean next Friday?
This is next Friday. Yeah, it's next Friday. Definitely, it's next Friday. Don't